Hey guys, Chris the Ultimate Recycler here. I had to shuffle sideways to get in the shed then. I have 3 computer servers that I picked up from a school e-waste pickup a while back. They've been sitting on my deck. Today's the day that we're going to try and scrap them out and see what value we've got in them. There's a couple of things that makes me a bit more excited about scrapping these things out now compared to previous times. I think I've only ever done 1 or 2 servers. I don't usually get them. I've done plenty of PCs. If you're into scrapping electronic stuff for e-waste or for precious metal recovery, I think these are pretty good. Now, we'll get into it. I think 2 of them are about the same. I'm not sure what brands they are. And I assume the hard drives have been removed from them. This one's a Dell. I think one of them's an Acer. And they're enjoyable to scrap out. In fact, PCs are in general. Any of you that have done them probably find them quite satisfying. They're quick to do. They usually unclip really easily. There's some pretty good value as far as e-waste goes, which I'll talk about shortly. Let's move the camera and we'll start pulling this one apart. Okay, let's work out how to get into this one. I think this side panel comes off, although it looks to have a lock. Hopefully that'll just turn with a screwdriver. Otherwise we're going to have to do some serious breaking and entering. No, I think we're right. Easy. So yeah, PCs are fun to scrap and there's some pretty good value in them. Now, I mentioned a couple of things have changed in recent times. Well, for a start, the price of gold and the price of silver has gone through the roof. And I'm saying it's burst through, taken off your TV antenna off the chimney. It's gone sky high recently, which will impact the prices of RAM and motherboards and CPUs, everything that possibly could contain gold, and of course silver. Silver's gone through the roof as well. I guess it went through the hole that gold left. Oh, okay, big plastic shroud. I guess that's just for airflow. Oh, it's connected via a wire. Oh no, there we go. So that's one thing. They're going to be more viable to scrap. And selling the e-waste, the precious metal recovery items. Now this has got, oh, it's got RAM in there. That will be a CPU. I thought they had 2 CPUs in a server. Maybe this isn't a server. You can see how experienced I am. So selling on eBay would be a good way of getting rid of the RAM and the CPUs and everything. I know you could sell to someone like eWaste Ben in Melbourne. But we had an email just the other day. I'm in Victoria in Australia. And eBay Australia is now going to be doing free listings, no seller fees. I think they've been doing it in the UK for a while. And it's only for small sellers under a certain turnover. But and I guess perhaps if you're a business eBayer, you'll still be paying fees. They've got to make their money somehow. But that will mean that marginal things to sell on eBay will be that much more profitable because there's no fees. All right, there's the CPU in there. I can't quite get that out at the moment. Which way do these go? I better bring the camera closer, I guess. Okay, that lifts up there. So higher prices and no less fees or no fees is got to be a plus for sellers. So that's the CPU. For those of you that have never seen inside a computer, this is the brain really of it. This is an Intel Xeon. It says Malaysia. Not sure. I don't think it's worth selling on its own, and I don't know if it's working. Probably is, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to sell them for scrap. Now these are the RAM sticks or memory sticks, and I believe RAM sticks from a server aren't actually worth as much for whatever memory they have, 8 GB. So that would have been a fairly good memory stick out of a normal PC, but I think out of RAMs they're different. I'll have to check on that. Let me know in the comments if you know. These things sell for a reasonably high price for the gold recovery. They're gold fingers, and I believe there's gold and other precious metals in these memory chips. Probably some silver, some palladium, possibly other metals that they chase. So I will check out to see if these are worth anything. I can type the numbers into eBay. But if they're from, well, I'm assuming this is a server. It's got a spot for another CPU, but it's just not populated. Anyway, regardless, they will add up to a fair bit, and they're easy to sell, or at least I could put them on eBay, and they're easy to post. Right, there's a whole heap of cords to unplug. I think I'll just do all this first. Oh, there's a board here. What's this board? It does plug into the motherboard. I'll have to undo these. Oh, you can't see me from there. Oh, there we go. So this is a slot card, or is it a PCI card? I'm just not up with a lot of computer stuff. These sell on their own. We can unplug the cables here. And I believe you can even leave the metal bracket on these. So, not sure about the heatsink, I guess so. That looks like a battery. That'll probably have to be removed. I've never seen a battery on a slot card before. But I guess we better take that one off. Yeah, it's definitely a battery. Okay, so I do have a box for all assorted slot cards. And at the end of this video, I'll work out what prices I reckon I can get for stuff. But I think as far as we go here, I'll unplug all these cables and I'll get back to you shortly. Okay, I've unplugged all the cables off these boards. The power supply should slide out the back, and there's a bit of a latch. Oh, okay, it's gone brittle. Now I don't know if I can operate it. There's some really cool latches on PCs though to get things apart, and when you know how, it's really easy. But it's not always a case of just pressing a button and things come out, because sometimes there's a bit of a trick to them. And we're not sure how this one was supposed to work. Oh, there's a screw at the back, I guess, has to come out. Oh, there we go. It will slide out with the cords. So I don't know if the power supply itself is going to have any value. It's a 350 watt. I guess I can check that out. There's really not much scrap value in power supplies, so I'll give that a check. Now this board at the front here has some sort of button. Oh, there we go. And the whole board comes out. Not that there's much of a board there. That really is just, I think that's the, well, that's the board that the hard drives plug into. There must be multiple hard drives go into this server, and I forget the name of that board, like a back plane board or something. Anyway, that will probably just go into e-waste. There's no real value on that for me. Now we have, I think this is a CD-ROM at the front, and there's a latch mechanism up here. Oops, you can't see me. There's a latch mechanism up here, which, there you go, and it slides out the front. So you don't actually need a lot of tools to take these things apart. Now, I talked about CD-ROMs in a recent video, and I'll probably just scrap these. The older ones with the beige covers I'm going to try and sell. I might have had, no, maybe, I think I was going to sell those on eBay. I might put this in the shop at $5 untested. It's rewritable DVD CD-ROM, so it might have some value. Manufactured 2014. I'll check eBay as well, but it might go in the shop untested cheap. We'll get some return that way. So the rest of the front of the server here had the hard drives. Maybe it had some other drives in the front. They've all been removed. This white cord just goes to the control panel at the front. And then we really have the motherboard in here. And at the back we have a fan. Switching positions now. The fan probably has some sort of latch here. There we go. How easy is that? Now, I sold some fans in the shop the other day. So I'll leave the wiring loom on this one. I only got $2 for them, but I had a box of 12 volt fans. Some were from PCs, some were from other things, and they were only $2 each, but I sold them all. So it's not worth $2 for scrap, so we might as well take that to the shop and try and get $2 for that one. So all we have left in this one is the motherboard. So we'll just take the screws out, and that's the motherboard free. It's a big board. Now that leaves a basically empty case. It's quite heavy, and I still have the lid for it which will clip on. I'm just going to use that to put small scrap bits of steel in for when I take it to the transfer station. It can just house all the small bits and pieces. I'll try not to make it too heavy, so I'll just use that as a cavity to get rid of pressing steel in. I've just taken the hardware, the springs and the screws out of the bottom of this big heatsink, and I'll save the hardware. The heatsink is aluminium and copper, so that can actually go in with your aluminium copper radiators. Doesn't weigh a great deal, but they do add up. The metal bracket around where the CPU went has a steel plate on the back of it. They have to be removed because there's just a bit too much dead weight in there. So there are Torx fitting. And I think that can just go in with general shred. It's just steel, and the plate on the back the same. I think that's just steel, yep. So that motherboard is right to go except for the battery. We have to take the battery out. And they can go to recycling, so that motherboard can then go to e-waste bin, or whoever else might want to buy motherboards. I believe they do get a bit of precious metal recovery out of those. So it's ready to go. We'll weigh that up at the end with the other ones. The only other thing to process with this lot is I'm just going to cut the plugs off these cables, and because they're all reasonably fine wires, it's often easier to do with scissors. Some of the plugs have gold connectors. I don't save them. I know some people do. I guess if the price of gold keeps going up, every bit of gold's going to be worthwhile. So that could probably go as it is. It does have a protective type sheath over it, which may have a market. I don't know if I could be bothered trying to sell them. I think that could just go straight in the data cable box, and we'll do the same with the other ones. This next machine is also a Dell. It looks a little bit different. It looks like it's got 2 power supplies. It's got some loose slot cards in here. Well, that's cool. And some cables have been unplugged. So again, the hard drives have been removed. I've got quite a bit of plastic here. How do we get this shroud out? Oh, there we go. We just had to lift it straight up. So that's got dual fans in it. There's 2 fans in there. Okay, I wonder if they're worth getting out. They're pretty dirty, those ones. We might just leave them there. Okay, much the same in here. We have this backplane board. We have a very, very similar heatsink on the CPU. Not sure what's under here. There's another CPU. So there is 2 on this one. No, it's just been blanked off, so it doesn't actually have a CPU in it. RAM sticks have covers on them. It's a bit different. Oh, that's just blank. So there's no RAM sticks in here. Oh, that's disappointing. That's a RAM stick blank. I don't suppose they've got any value. That's a shame. No RAM sticks at all. Alright, I'll pull the rest of this apart. It's much the same as the other one. Here's what I got out of this server. We have twin power supplies that are actually 870 watt. So they're fairly beefy ones. Even though they're small, they just plugged in at the back. So they don't have a wiring loom. Not sure how we're going to go selling those. Huge motherboard on this one, although most of it was blank, as you saw with the RAM and the CPU, or the second CPU. The couple of slot cards that were just loose in there, a little bit of wire, a bit of heavier gauge wire in this one, so we'll get a slightly better price for that. Another CD-ROM or DVD rewritable. I took this heatsink off the board. It was just a bit large to leave on the board, so that's extruded aluminium. I checked out these blank RAM stick fillers, and you can still buy them new. There was quite a lot online, but they weren't, they were less than $1 each, I think, and I don't think I'd be able to sell them secondhand. It does say please recycle on them. I'll do my best. I can't put them in the curbside recycling bin, but I will put them in with my e-waste, because hopefully the place that processes all that has a way to recycle these. I think it'd be ABS plastic. So, okay, that's all we got out of this one. Let's get the Acer on the bench and pull that apart. It could be a little bit different. This Acer server seems substantially heavier than the other two. It's an AT350F2, and I noticed behind here it has all the hard drives removed. There's a couple of blanks here just to fill in the spaces of where hard drives didn't go. I don't know if they've got a market. Probably not worth my effort. Let's get into this one and see what we can find. Something I noticed on this one, and I probably could have done it with the last server with the plug-in power supplies, is that they've got a latch and a handle at the back, and you can actually remove the power supply straight out. So they're a nice long one. What are they? Super micro 920 watt. So I have to check out and see if these are going to have some value. Probably not. They certainly haven't got much value for scrap. They appear to be in aluminium cases. I could probably sell them as irony aluminium. They don't weigh a great deal really. But I guess that would have been easier to lift it up on the bench with the power supplies removed. The fans might also be a module by the look of this latch. How do we go here? Maybe not. Why would they have a latch though if you couldn't remove them? Maybe they're just plugged in and the plug's a bit tight. Let's give them a little encouragement. There we go, they do. They do unplug. A little rusty. So they're only little fans, they're a bit rusty. I don't think I'm going to try and sell those. Might as well take them out though. There we go. Alright, so let's get into it. Okay, push. Oh, there we go. Open. How's that? I love all these little latches on these things. Okay, this one has a bank of fans here. There's two heat sinks, so I'm presuming there's two CPUs. We do have some RAM in this one, which is great. 4GB RAM sticks. I'll check those out. I believe the price of second-hand RAM is actually pretty good. I was reading it something to do with AI. People need more memory. Not sure on that. Okay, well, we've got 4 RAM sticks in total. Okay, there's lots of cable ties around the wires in this one, so we'll get rid of those. We've got a fair bit of wire in here, which is nice. It's good heavy gauge wire. And again, we have to unplug it all off the circuit board. Oh, we can slide the CD-ROM out. Oh, that's pretty rusty. All right, I don't think we're going to have much luck selling that one. And we've got to get the fan assembly out. Looks like it probably unscrews from this side. And we'll unplug all the cables. All right, it's probably a bit hard for you to see anything here. I'll pull it apart and show you what I get. Well, this was the least enjoyable of the 3 servers. It was just a bit of a hassle. Everything was awkward to get out, nothing unclipped really easily. A lot of the wire is, yeah, there's lots of good heavy wire, but a lot of it didn't even unplug. It was soldered directly onto some sort of power board that the power supply is plugged into. The board itself, the motherboard, came out okay. The heat sinks are a little more complicated to get apart than the other ones. They had metal brackets underneath that had to come off. There was some aluminium covers that I took off. So yeah, a little bit more work in this one. We have 2 CPUs though. Both the CPU sockets were populated. And I've ended up finding another RAM stick around one side. So we have 5 RAM sticks all up. Okay, that's finished scrapping all these servers. Now we'll assemble it all on the desk, have a look at what we got. I'll do a bit of checking on some prices to see if anything's worth selling, and we'll weigh up what we're going to scrap just to see how much return we get. Okay, here's everything I've salvaged from these servers on the bench, and pricing and valuing this stuff is extremely difficult. I'm just going to take it initially from a scrapper's perspective, not going to try and market anything. What's it worth to sell as scrap? Some of it will go straight to the scrapyard, like the wire and the copper aluminium radiators. The boards would have to go to, well, in Victoria or in Melbourne at least, someone like e-waste bin. In the US, I think you had to have a company called Board Sort. I don't know what they pay. You could sell them on eBay for scrap, but the boards probably aren't worth it. The ram sticks would be. The power supplies really aren't worth much at all as far as scrap goes. A scrapyard might take them as irony aluminium. There's a bit more wire off this one here if you wanted to go that way. The CPUs aren't worth very much. You could save up a bulk lot of them and sell them on eBay, you know, in a 1 kilo at a time or something. Probably the same as slot cards. These DVDs or the DVD writers aren't worth a great deal. They did sell on eBay a little bit, $10, $20 max. Not really worth the effort. A little bit of aluminium just to the scrapyard. Bit of hardware that most of you would just put in with the cases. So scrap-wise, they're not overly exciting. If you were doing a lot of them, you could certainly save up RAM sticks and CPUs and get a bit. I've estimated some prices here from either from my scrapyard price list or what I found online. Say e-waste bin was quoting $5.40 for motherboards, server motherboards. The RAM, $38 a kilo. There was only 150 grams there for 9 sticks of RAM. The CPUs, he wasn't offering a price. I tried to gauge it from what bulk lots were selling on eBay. These are the pinless ones, so they don't have the gold pins. They're just flat, and they've got a copper top on them. So maybe $5 worth there for the CPUs. Slot cards, $4.40 a kilo. That was through e-waste bin. Copper aluminium radiators was for a scrapyard price, and the wire the same. So about $60 for scrap. And I did include, even though I'm not cashing it in, the casing. All the casings added up to about 50 kilos, so almost $12 there if you sell your pressing steel or shred or whatever you would like to call it to the scrapyard. Prices on steel aren't all that good at the moment. So there we go. Scrap-wise, yeah, it's a bit of work to scrap them. They are fun to scrap, and it's a reasonable return, I guess, particularly because the motherboards would stack up and you'd end up with quite a bit if you've got a good way of selling those. But the confusing thing is, researching individual parts really surprised me. I knew the RAM was likely to sell as RAM rather than scrap, and with a bit of help from AI, I identified exactly what they were. They are specialist RAM for servers. You can't use them in a normal PC. The 4GB ones aren't too bad. The 8GB ones are much better. I could sell them in a set. And AI was giving an estimate of $30 to $40 for a set of 4, maybe $20 to $30 for that set. And I did check eBay and I typed in the model numbers, and they were getting that sort of money. So we're talking, you know, what's that? Say $50 to $70 for that lot. $5.70 for scrap. So that's certainly a good option. You do have to be careful with RAM. They are reasonably resistant to shorting or anything with static electricity, but you're best to handle them by the edges. You're best to wrap them or post them in an anti-static bag rather than just normal plastic, because that could cause some damage. So you do have to treat them with care. You shouldn't really wipe your fingerprints all over the gold fingers. But they're not too bad. They're not as sensitive as, for example, the CPUs are, and touching these can actually damage them. But these ones just weren't worth selling. I checked these out online because they're specific server ones. And AI basically suggested they're worthless, sell them as scrap. So not much value there. We will put them aside and sell them as scrap down the track. What did I say for there? I estimated about $5. But the RAM sticks are one thing. Increase our return enormously. But AI suggested, and a bit of Googling also sort of confirmed, that I probably should have been more careful with the motherboards and actually sold them with the CPUs still in them so they weren't damaged, and maybe some of the cables and maybe even the RAM sticks. And there seemed to be quite a market for these server boards. Now apparently it's a bit of a niche area, but some people run old servers, and if they have a board that's dead or has, you know, for some reason has a damaged socket, they're an unusual socket, I think, these ones, then they need to replace the server board. So they were actually getting pretty good money. I found some of these boards, even without the CPUs, selling for $50, $60, $70 postage is going to be an issue, but it's certainly much, much better than scrap price. Again, what did we have for those three? About $17. With a bit of time and perhaps trying to fire up the server before you scrap it to see if things work. You know, if you can say working condition, you're going to do much, much better. Depends on the time you've got on your hands, of course. The biggest surprise, oh, actually another one, these slot cards, I believe they're RAID controllers, something to do with controlling the data on various hard drives. They were selling, and I checked them out, different models here, they were selling for $30, $40 each, secondhand, even around that untested. So potentially, what, $100 there? And obviously you've got to write up an ad and take photos and everything. There's a bit of time involved. We had $1.65 for scrap. So potentially much, much better selling these things as parts if you're prepared to commit the time to it. The big surprise though was these power supplies. Pretty well nothing for scrap. I didn't even write them down. This one in particular, the Dell here, the 350 watt one, I'll just show you a quick browse on eBay for this exact one and some of the sold prices they were getting. And you can test them even out of the PC or out of the server. You can short a certain wire, I think it might be the green wire, to ground, which will actually turn them on, and you can then test the power output. So you can actually, again, you're probably better to try and boot the server up when it's complete, but prices on those could add up to hundreds of dollars, literally hundreds of dollars, because people want to keep old servers going, and parts are almost impossible to get other than someone like myself selling these through eBay. So that's made me reconsider what I should do with these servers in the future. In my case at the moment, I'm pretty well going to cash them in for what I can get there. I might stack the power supplies aside for now. The RAM, maybe I'll just wrap them in some anti-static plastic and just store them for the moment. I'm not going to worry about the motherboards because I think I probably damaged them a bit getting them apart, and I can't guarantee they work, so they'll be scrap. Consequently, the heat sinks and the wire will all be scrap. The fan wouldn't have been any value at all. I'm only trying to get a couple of dollars for that through the shop. Well, I might as well save these two, although I can't really test them now, that's the trouble. But eBay was showing ads for them untested and still getting reasonable money. So there we go. This list could have potentially been $300 or $400, but obviously a bit more work. But when I don't have the shop anymore, I think I'll be trying to part things out much more than what I have in the past. So this video exercise has been a bit of a journey of discovery for me, as I hope for you guys. I've certainly always known that parting things out is often quite profitable, and I once got a TV with a cracked screen, but I knew it worked because it still lit up, you just couldn't see the picture properly. And I sold the main board for like $60 or $70 and the power board for about $30 or $40. But the TV even going, I would have struggled to get $50 for. So there's definitely more profit in parting things out a lot of the time. I haven't investigated computers so much, and because I've been busy with the shop and have had a way to sell things, I've just been funneling it through the shop. But this is quite valuable information to me, and I think it would be to you guys that don't have a shop as well. Because Australia is bringing in free eBay listings, that just makes it even more desirable, or more practical, more efficient for us to do it. If I can sell the RAM sticks, maybe I'll take a while to find the right buyer. I don't know that it's worth doing an auction and starting them at $1. I think it's probably worth nominating $40, even free postage, because they'll pack up in something quite small. And no fees makes it much more attractive. So there we go. I'm going to be much more careful with computer stuff in the future, and I'll try and look at absolutely everything. If I have a bit more time and eBay doesn't charge fees, I think it's a good option to part things out, because there's always people looking for old stuff, and you can't get vintage stuff like this through your standard computer supply place. So the best way to go is eBay. If you are doing this, try and test things first before you randomly pull it apart like I did here. So yeah, bit of good information I think that we've both discovered. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.